After transporting everyone else, I then proceeded to transport myself through my shadow. I appeared in the ruined cities of Raccoon City. The smell of death and decay in the air. Ah, it takes me back, I thought to myself. I checked my senses to see if I could locate Jill Valentine. It appears that she's not too far from here. As a matter of fact, it appears she's heading this way. It was at this moment that a door swung open not too far from me, and a young woman with short brown hair came through the door. Ah, you must be Jill Valentine. She looked at me and then proceeded to ask, "Who are you?" "Ma'am, I'm the owner of a private military corporation. We've been contracted to secure and evacuate target personnel. Fortunately for you, your name is on our list. I've come to retrieve you." She looked at me quite puzzled, and then proceeded to ask, "Who sent you? Who are you working for?" I looked at her and replied, "Ma'am, I'm not part of Umbrella, if that's what you're thinking. We actually run opposed to Umbrella. Not entirely, but I don't exactly agree with their business practices. Anyways, come on, we've got to get you out of this city. If I'm correct, there's a train car around here somewhere, but I think it will be needing up some repairs. If I'm correct, I believe there is a gas station nearby. That should help us out if we need some fuel, but there are a few other things that I'm pretty sure it might be missing." She looked at me oddly and then said, "Yeah, it needs some wires. I already put them in, but it also looks like it's gonna need a fuse. Oh, we should be able to find them nearby. Let's start at the gas station first." She nodded in agreement, and then mentioned that she was heading that way anyways. "Well then, lead the way." She then proceeded to head on through the door. I followed. After a bit of time, there was not much between us and the gas station. We only came across maybe one rogue zombie. It wasn't anything much to deal with. We proceeded to come up to the front of the gas station. Vehicles are strewn everywhere. The place was a complete and total mess. The shutters were down. When we came to the main shutter, I noticed that there was a large piece of rusted metal inside of the great opening. And it looked as if someone had tried to use an old rusty crank to open it, but it had broken off in the process. Who in their right mind would use a rusty crank? Is it this that Jill kind of scratched the back of her head and said, "Yeah, who would do a stupid thing like that?" I just shrugged and then proceeded to reach forward and grab a hold of the rusted piece of metal and twist it in my hands as the shutters went up. Jill looked on at me quite shocked and amazed, and then mentioned that she had a wrench that would have worked just as well. But I shrugged it off. Well, the job is already done. We both headed inside of the gas station. I proceeded to the back of the gas station when I heard a noise at the front door.
Hey, the zombies are getting restless.
I know. I can hear them. What's going on? What's wrong?
They're coming! They must have sniffed us out. They know we're here.
Hey, calm down.
Any objections to my playing hero this time?
What are you doing? Carlos!
The explosion nearly blew me all the way back to where we had entered. My body broken and shattered all over this large barricade. I slowly heard Carlos coming my way. My bones cracked and creaked back into place. I was able to move, and he was not able to see me as he passed through. A few moments later, Jill came walking down. She looked at me in quite shock and surprise, and then proceeded to ask, "Wait, how did you survive that explosion?" I merely smiled at her and replied, "Ma'am, I'm a man of many talents, but sometimes it's just dumb luck." I then proceeded to ask her, "Did you get the fuel?" She held up a container of half-full machine oil. "Yep, I got it." I looked at her. "Well, looks like we're still going to need some additive for that, but we can put that on hold. Maybe it's best we go look for the fuse. Maybe we'll come across the additive in the meantime." I then asked her, "Is there a power plant nearby?" She nodded her head and replied, "Yeah, there should be one not too far from here." I motioned her to lead the way. She proceeded to head through the door, and I followed suit. After a little bit of walking, we found ourselves in a underground lift area. Once we entered, I had noticed the familiar sounds of clicking and clacking. I silenced Jill for a moment and pointed it out. Jill looked on in horror and disgust, and then quietly asked, "What is that thing?" I responded, "The code name Demos. Personally, they're annoying little bugs to me." I reached into my coat and pulled out my large 50 caliber Desert Eagle handgun. "Are you ready to taste a little blood, Muramasa?" I took aim and fired. A large bang, and then the creature was splattered to pieces. And then I could hear the quick sound of click, click, click over the steel on the floor as another one came rushing towards us. I pulled the trigger again, and it was eviscerated into nothing. I then proceeded to put the gun back in its holster, and we proceeded to make our way through the rest until we made our way to the lift. Unfortunately, when we made it there, we noticed that it was missing a battery. But it was nothing major to worry about. I just so happened to have a spare power source on me, so I attached it to the lift, and then we proceeded to take it down. The lift led us out not too far away from the substation, but unfortunately between us and the substation there was about a half a dozen zombies. Jill proceeded to pull her gun. It was at this moment that I told her, "Save your ammo, you may need it later," as I proceeded to walk through and slowly dismember each of the zombies with my own 2 hands, moving far too quickly and too fast for any of them to catch me, even in close quarters such as these. After clearing the zombies, we then proceeded to head into the substation. Once inside, we noticed there were 2 doors, both with very large and heavy shutters drawn before them. I'm guessing whatever we need would be in there, correct? Jill nodded her head in agreement. I walked over to the shutters, got a firm grasp underneath them, and then pulled it straight up. Jill looked at me in quite awe and surprise. I headed inside the room, and there was the fuse that we needed. I walked back out to see her shocked, stunning face. But it was not me that she was shocked about. Looking to my left, I could see a large horde of zombies, much larger than the ones we had dealt with before. "Now, this might be a problem. I think we best make an exit." She nodded and then proceeded to head to the back where there was an emergency exit. It seemed to have been jammed. She slammed herself against it, trying to open it. I gave the door a firm kick, and it flew right off its hinges. We then proceeded to head through to the second door, leading back out into the street. It was there that all of a sudden I heard from above us, "Stars!" I looked up to see the large, hideous menace holding a very large rocket launcher. "Oh, well, this is going to be fun," I thought to myself, as a large creature pulled the rocket launcher and fired. I grasped the missile half midway through flight and I flung it back at him, hitting the rocket launcher and blowing it out of his hands. He then proceeded to jump down from the rooftops. Jill proceeded to run down the street away from the creature. I merely stood before it. Well, well, aren't we a mighty big boy? Its only answer was, stars. Well, somebody has a very one-track mind, don't we? Well, if you want to see stars, then I'll make you see stars. The large abomination moved towards me with a great deal of speed. It caught me a little off guard, but not enough to give it an advantage. I swiftly moved to one side to avoid its blow. It turned around very quickly. Well, you are quite nimble for your size, I'll give you that. But I'm sorry, you're going to have to take a nap. I then proceeded to lay a very hard kick against its face. It stumbled and dropped to one knee. I was a bit shocked and surprised to see it get up. Well, it's a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be. Oh well. I then proceeded to hit it several more times. It eventually fell. I don't believe it's dead. At least it's incapacitated. It was at this point that I noticed it had dropped in a large, odd case. I picked it up, and then I heard Jill yelling from down the street, back where the lift was. I picked up the small case and then headed to meet her. I handed her the case, and then we proceeded back up the lift. We proceeded to make our way through the city. The hordes of zombies had grown, and the sick, disgusting creatures were also a lot more vivid. After some time, we made ourselves to what appeared to be an office building. I told Jill to go ahead and search inside. I'll stay out here and keep an eye out in case something happens. She agreed and headed inside. After a while, I heard 2 gunshots. I didn't think much of it. Perhaps she had found it dead well inside, so I paid it no mind. But after a while, I started to hear the sounds of a horde moving our way. I rushed inside just as they came crashing through the windows. Almost a dozen of them, if not more. I pulled out my firearm and started to go to town. One after another, they fell like sacks of potatoes. And almost with perfect timing, once I had dispatched of all the dead, Jill came walking out of the back room, quite confused at what had occurred. I told her not to worry about it, and that we should probably make our way back to the train, now that we had everything that we would be needing to fix it. She nodded in agreement, and we made our way back towards the train. Making our trek back was quite a bit more difficult this time, as there was quite a few more zombies. They seemed to be multiplying and coming out of nowhere. But there were more than enough for myself and Jill to handle. After some time, we made it to a parking lot, as we had to go through here to get back to the train. We proceeded to make our way through the parking lot, but then all of a sudden the earth started to shake and tremble. A few moments passed, and then the ground opened up underneath Jill. I rushed forward to catch her, and I pulled her to safety. She thanked me, and we continued on. After moving through the shopping district, we proceeded to the city hall gates, where I heard a very familiar sound of doors. I tilted my head back as my eyes rolled back in my head. Does this man never give up? You know, you're more persistent than an IRS tax auditor. I must give you that. He came rushing down at us at a high rate of speed. Oh, come on. We've already played this game before. Do we really have to do this again? It was at this moment that the large creature struck me in the head, and I went sailing, finding myself plastered to a wall. I slowly pulled myself off the wall, and I could hear him once again. This whole stars thing is getting very old very quickly. He was heading towards Jill. I rushed up behind him and grabbed him on his shoulders and forced him onto his back onto the ground. He looked up at me, fury and anger on his face. But on a face like that, I don't think much else would shine through. He got up to his feet very quickly, and then he did something a little odd. He took a boxer's stance. Well, that's something I've never seen before. Alright then. Ding ding, round one. I put up my dukes, since I figured if he wanted a boxing match, I'd give him one. One by one we landed blows on each other. It was quite exhilarating, as I hadn't had a good hand-to-hand combat fight in a long time. But it wasn't before too long before I realized I couldn't play around with him too long. So I cheated. I pulled out a gun and blew him away. He took quite a few rounds, even after all of the blows that I had landed on him. Once I had downed him, he had dropped yet another case again. I picked it up and handed it to Jill. She thanked me, and we proceeded to head on our way before this sleeping behemoth came to its feet again. We made it back to the train without any further incident. We then proceeded to mix the machine oil and the additive, as well as the fuse, to the train car. Once everything was fixed and we were ready to go, Carlos came in and really stated everything that needed to be known. Him and Jill proceeded to head to the front of the train car. I sat down in one of the benches across from Mikhail as the train started to move. It wasn't too much longer before we heard yet again a very familiar sound. Gosh! Really, does this man ever give up? He busted into the train car, and as to be expected, Jill came rushing in. I pulled my firearm once again and proceeded to unload it into the behemoth that stood before me. It didn't take much, but he eventually fell. But it was not too long before he got back up. But then Mikhail spoke.
Get out of the cable car, now!
Mikhail, wait! Don't!
Get out of here! Hurry!